ondas, primes, primos y primas. This is my primos podcast, and sorry for the odd or out of norm format. I'm Primo Edding, and this night we have the Primo Kevin Garcia.
Yes,
And
sir. It's so
how
good
we
to
doing
have
tonight?
so good to have the two of us together again, man. We don't do that very often. I think it's only like the second time it's been the two of us with a guest. But thank you for doing the intro. I'm always ashamed of my Spanish. In fact, you want to know how bad my Spanish is? I
How
just
bad
did,
is it?
I just did a Comic Con with George Takei, who always very proud of his Japanese heritage, and I began talking to him about it. And when he found out my name was Garcia, he started talking to me in Spanish on stage, testing my Spanish.
Ooh.
And I'm like, if I had been prepared, maybe. Um, but yeah, I asked him about his Spanish, and he goes, "Well, he's from East LA," and I'm like, "Oh, damn." Yeah.
Oh, it's not really. Oh, okay. I didn't know
So,
that.
so I was explaining, that I am, biracial. I am Latino, but like I come from a mixed family, and we talked about that. It was a good conversation.
Mm.
But we have with us a guest today who also is a frequenter of Comic Cons and also has a similar background to myself, another Latino. Vin, also known as Buried Aliens on Instagram and TikTok and other social medias. Vin, say hello, introduce yourself.
Hey, how's it going, guys? And yep, I am definitely in that fun little mixed category. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, man. I tell you. Um, what I love about your name, Buried Aliens, is where it comes from, because that is some deep, deep comic book lore. Do you want to tell people where Buried Aliens comes from?
Yeah, it actually you're the one that introduced me to that.
Am I really?
Yes, back in good old 2017, we were having one of our late night card games, which ended in us just going on and on about speedster lore. Because,
Yep.
back in
Yep.
2013 to about 2016, 2017, my cosplay days and art days were focused on around speedster comics. Like Speed from Young Avengers was the big one. The Flash family. I was a big fan of Impulse, Bart Allen, the
Yep.
likes.
You had your original web comic Breakneck for a bit.
Yeah, Breakneck. It went up to 5 chapters. I still have 30 more chapters to do eventually.
Hey, as soon as he catches up, he's gonna speed right through it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, so that night we were talking speedsters, and that's when you introduced me to that old Marvel comic where all the speedsters of the universe got together, had a fantastic race, and good old Barry Allen popped up and ended up winning as
Yeah.
the fantastic crossover. I believe you said it was after the death of Flash in DC, and as a homage to him, Marvel decided to crown him as the fastest man of the Marvel universe, and he couldn't remember his name since he reality hopped, and he thought his name was Buried Alien, and Buried Alien was taken on every single social media, so I threw an S on the end. And funny enough, Buried Aliens is also a double kind of homage to our fallen scum dogs, Odorous Urungus and Flatus Maximus from Guar, the two band members who had passed away in the past. So, yep.
I love this. Speedsters and Guar, two of your biggest lures.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a lot. That's like I was like, oh damn! I do know when it comes to comic books. I guess I'm the one that knows the least, but I do know that there was like like a crossover between DC and Marvel.
Well, this is even
And
before that because this was an unofficial crossover. This is
Yep.
one that
okay,
Marvel did not get permission to use him because
hence
yeah,
the that he didn't know his name, right?
yes,
Yeah,
that's why he didn't
exactly.
know his name.
Okay,
So you could see like a tattered red costume. He had a beard because he'd been
yeah,
running for so long. And what it was a race of like Quicksilver and Makari and all the fastest people in the Marvel universe. And the one who won the race was the Flash. And this was
okay,
after he had died in Christ and Infinite Earth, and obviously before he was eventually brought back. In my head canon, that is actually canon that he did that in the middle before he came back to life and rebirth.
okay. So
But
sorry to cut you off, but to go back to the previous topics, I'm assuming Vin has a different opinion on the latest movie, or the latest film of our Red
well,
Crimson.
let me ask: did you watch it then?
I actually did not watch it. Yeah.
For a lot of people, that was a conscious choice. Is this a conscious choice? You just haven't gotten around to it.
I don't really plan on watching it. I'm so out of the loop on everything superhero movies, man. Like it's been way too long. It's kind of this thing now where I only really watch them when I visit my partner's parents' place up in Buda. And they like to watch Marvel movies because I have all this knowledge of the comic background, and their dad will pause the TV and be like, "Okay, who's that?" And
Oh
I'll
no,
be like, "Okay, so this
I've
is
got.
that character. They appeared in this franchise this year, this issue," and he's like, "Wow, incredible!"
I'm
And
having
then
flashbacks to
yeah,
when like the Marvel universe started, and friends would call me, "Hey, can you explain what this is?" And,
that
and,
was me when I worked at Cinemark down there in Brownsville. Yeah, my managers every single new Marvel, because this was 2013, 2014. So when all that was starting to get big, all of my managers and coworkers would be like, "Hey man, uh can you tell us the backstory on this?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, here you go, I got you."
So Vin is burdened with the curse of knowledge.
yes,
Oh,
burdened with horrible
for
knowledge.
sure. Yeah.
I know that feeling. Well,
Hmm.
Okay.
on the note though of being sidetracked and not keeping track of movies, I have been massively sidetracked for the past month and a half now because of Zelda. This is my addiction. I always tell people that I try to do like one AAA video game a year because I know once I do it, it's going to take up all my free time, and I don't tend to have a lot of free time during the school year. But when it's Zelda, it's a whole other level because this has always been my favorite franchise since the first NES came out. Everybody here has been playing Tears of the Kingdom. Everybody on social media has been playing Tears of the Kingdom. Edine, talk to me real quick.
Oh,
what is your Zelda background? How did you get this opening or the day it came out rather?
yeah, no, actually, it was a weekend after because I knew that the game was coming out. I just knew it was like, oh, it's coming out, but I just I thought it was actually going to come out at the end of the year. But I just remember I started to see short like what's it called, the short clips on
Mhm.
Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and I thought, oh, these are like, why is Breath of the Wild picking up? I
You're
thought
like, I
these
don't
are
even remember how you
videos.
could do that in Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah, this is like I don't remember this item in Breath of the Wild. And so to make the story short, I visited a friend and I was like, oh man, I saw these things, like, and he's like, oh no, the new game came out. I was like, what? When did it come out? Like last weekend. Next paycheck came, I bought it. I was like, I
Of
need
course, of
to.
course.
So that was like about what? About a month and a half ago or so?
Yeah, yeah. It came out the day before my birthday. I had it,
Ah.
or a couple days before my birthday. I guess I had it ordered months in advance, and everybody's like, "Didn't you say you're broke?" I said, "Of course I'm broke, but this is Zelda." How
That's
about
what you
you?
did.
Priorities,
That's
man.
what you did with Breath of the Wild too, though.
Yep, exactly,
I
exactly.
remember. I remember when the Switch was announced. You're like, I gotta get the Switch. I gotta get Breath of the Wild.
Priorities.
Yeah.
Priorities.
Exactly.
Hmm.
I always tell people I'm completely behind on all technology. Like people make fun of my tiny little iPhone, because it's older, but I have every Nintendo project. I have every Nintendo system that's ever come out in the U.S., including the Virtual Boy, which mostly works. It's got one eye kind of flickering now.
So let me interrupt. If since we're gonna dive deep, let's can we give like a to the best of our knowledge history, our history with the game.
Yeah.
So
Well,
like system first game and all that stuff.
let's start with
What do
you,
you get?
Eddie. What's
Okay.
when did you first start with Nintendo?
My earliest memories of the game was in El Salvador, but I just saw the cartridge, the Nintendo cartridge. The Nintendo, and it was gold. And I remember when I would see the Nintendo games, cartridge or whatever, gray. This one, I was like, well, what is this? What is this special about? Like, what is this? And I was like, I remember seeing the shield of Legend of Zelda, but again, at that point, I barely knew how to read and all that stuff, right? But I saw the
Mhm.
cartridge and it was gold. Fast forward years, and then, but the first time I played the game was back in '98, and it was the entry game for most of at least for the
The
majority
whole
I've heard
generation. Yeah,
is
whole generation.
is
Ocarina.
Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of
Mhm.
Time. Ocarina of Time. That was my first entry, the first game that I've ever played, and from there I just started to like, and then after that was Majora's Mask, and I started to fall in love with the franchise. So from there it's like, okay, what is this? I started to do like my research. Started to back when high school. This was what 2004. Um, and by that point, the Majora's Mask already came out like back in I think 2001. Anyways, I started to do my research, start to look up, well, okay, how many games are there of this? And then that's when I connected the dots that that golden cartridge that I had seen back years in the early 90s, it was Legend of Zelda. And I believe it was the first one. So ever
Yeah,
since then, Spirit Tracks, uh,
you just consumed
the
the series.
yeah, I was chronologically off because I started with like again Ocarina of Time,
I
but
mean, to
ever
be
since then
fair,
I've
so
been
is the series.
yeah, yeah, true, very true. But from there I've been trying to like keep up. There's definitely some major ones that are like Linked Adventure of Link I haven't played. That's basically the second one.
Yep.
But ever since then I've been kind of keeping track from every system from GameCube to the Wii to and now this one's on the Switch. Oddly, put it this way: when Twilight was coming out, when Twilight was coming out, I first the reason why I ever started working my like the reason why I got a job for the very first time ever is because I needed to buy the Wii so I can get that game.
That's you know what? That's a valid reason to join the workforce. Vin, how about you? How'd you start with Zelda?
So my story with Zelda is actually pretty fascinating. As a kid, I never owned a Zelda game really until, well, I guess like late elementary school. We went to like a yard sale, and I also saw the famed gold cartridge, and I was like, I want that. I don't know what that is, but I want it. And we had an NES, of course, so we got it for a quarter. It was 25 cents, and it was awesome.
Hell
I
yeah,
don't
that's appropriate.
remember if I ever actually tried playing it. I know we had that one, and we had Zelda 2.
Mhm.
Um, I never owned A Link to the Past and never owned Ocarina of Time, which is
Wow.
shocking because I was like,
Uh, I keep thinking you're from that generation that like he was saying grew up with Ocarina. So that's what I was thinking.
exactly,
Then,
yeah.
then again,
So
I'm from the generation that grew up with Pokemon, and I've never played a Pokemon game. So there you go.
yeah, exactly. So like I grew up on Super Nintendo and N64 primarily. Never owned any of those games, but in whenever I was a big Rareware fan, so like a lot
Yeah,
of
of
Donkey
course.
Kong, Banjo Kazooie, that stuff. And then when
Oh,
Star
good
Fox,
stuff.
yeah, when Star Fox teamed up with Rare to kind of overhaul Dinosaur Planet and turn it into Star Fox Adventures for the GameCube, I remember playing it a lot, like in the third grade, and my older sibling was like, "Why do you like that game? It's just a crappy version of Ocarina of Time
I
with
was
like a
just
Star
thinking the
Fox
same
skin
thing. It was
over it."
basically a Zelda game.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know about that, but also I'd never played a Zelda game like that at that age. Um, and so I continued to basically not have played any of the Zelda games, even the two NES cartridges that I owned.
Mhm.
Um, just because I was so invested in Rareware and collectathons and the platformers and such. When I actually started dating my partner, who was a huge Zelda fan, they during the pandemic was like, I'm gonna make you play a Zelda game. Even though you've never
One
played one, I'm
of
gonna make
us.
you do it.
You
And I
know
was
One
what?
like,
of
I don't
us.
know about
I
that.
can
One of
respect them for
us.
that.
Yeah,
One of
I
us.
was like, I'll do
One
it. I'll
of us.
try. We'll see how it goes. Um, they started me off actually on Wind Waker because they were like, "You're gonna love this," and I'm like, "Am
That's actually
I?"
a really good one to start. You know what? Let me interrupt your story for a quick
Yeah,
second. You are an artist as well. We talked about that briefly earlier.
sure am.
Your art style isn't the same as Wind Waker, but I could see you really getting into the flowiness of Wind Waker. What was your reaction to that art?
Yeah, so we popped it in, and they gave me the whole backstory of how, at the time of release, people were not into Wind Waker because they wanted the
The
more.
older fans.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted that more like edgy preview footage that Nintendo had released
Yeah,
when they were
yeah,
showcasing GameCube graphics.
exactly. For anybody not familiar, when the GameCube first was about to come out, the preview footage that Nintendo put out saying this is what we could do with it was a sample Zelda scene that was not part of any game. It wasn't even intended to be part of any game, but it was this really ultra shadowy, very, I would say, realistic for the time is Link versus the giant spider, and yeah, that was not
Yeah.
what they delivered.
So, I got the backstory on Wind Waker, and they uh, convinced me to buy it. So I found it on eBay because we only had the Wii U version, and I was like, if I'm gonna play this, I'm gonna play the original the way it was intended to make.
You know what? You're a brave man, considering they made some quality of life uh, um, improvements for the Wii U
Oh,
version.
I've heard. Yes. I found it on eBay for $60, surprisingly, with case and everything. And I played through almost the entire game that summer during the pandemic, and I pretty much fell in love with it. It was great. It was I loved the art style. I loved how I loved Link's expressions. I loved the story, of course, like adventurer going off to save his sister. I was like, hey, this is just Banjo Kazooie. But yeah, it was great. I had a lot of fun. I got kind of introduced to the gameplay of those 3D Zelda games back then. Um, and then from there, I kind of backtracked and I played through the first Deku Tree dungeon of Ocarina of Time. I did the whole opening sequence of Majora's Mask until the first like forced moon crashing uh, situation, and that was really fun too. I was kind of like, wow, these are pretty great. Like I'm having a good time. This is like history that I missed out on when it was in like at the peak of its time. And so from there, yeah, I just kind of like kept going. I started playing Link to the Past. I actually finally started playing the very first one. I
I
recently
was going to
started
ask that
playing
for both of
Zelda
you guys.
2. Yeah. Um, I
Well,
didn't get too far in the first one, but
yeah,
yeah.
I want to talk to you guys specifically about first second game real quick. But before I do, I want to tell you a little bit about my history. I am the definition of an old school gamer in the sense that I started with the original Nintendo. I was like I was elementary age when the Nintendo came out. I was 6, 7, 8, and back in the day there was very little tie-in stuff, and I saw at the store they had little like a trophy that you could get saying when you beat the game, and I told my parents I had to get this trophy because I was going to beat the game. So sure enough, I bought the little plastic trophy, which is based on the original game. It's meant to be like a top down of him fighting one of the heads of the Gleeok, and it even says here when I finished it. I guess I was 12 when I beat it finally. I beat it in October of '92, and I wrote down under high score, I put finish in all capital letters. So
Nice. That's pretty wild.
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's really cool.
And you
So
mentioned
that's
that you
like
have,
a precursor. That's kind of like a precursor to achievements unlocked,
yeah,
right?
basically, yeah, because now the
Yeah.
achievements are all digital. But back in the day, I
Yeah.
remember they had these for Mario, they had these for Zelda. I don't know what happened to my Mario ones; they disappeared. But I was always more of a Zelda fan, and I actually have
Yeah.
some Zelda games that I've never played. But that's only because the system doesn't exist anymore. I
I was
have this.
gonna ask you about your ZDI's
Yes,
Zeldas.
yes, I have the CDI Zelda games. These are the games that even Nintendo refuses to acknowledge. Like if you ask an
Wait,
official Nintendo representative about this, they will just kind of like, change subject.
wait. The Philips one?
Yep, the Philips CDI. These are the
God
ones.
damn, you have those.
Yep, I do. I even have one of the Mario games.
Well,
Uh,
that's wild.
the Philips CDI, for those you guys don't know, you can Google it real quick. But it's just it was a system that Nintendo made because they were fighting with Sony, and it failed. Nintendo didn't make it; Philips made it, but Nintendo signed off on it. But because of the fight with Sony, Sony now had all the research and made PlayStation. So basically, Nintendo caused PlayStation to exist. But I want to bring all that up because I wanted to talk to you guys about Zelda 1 and 2 real quick, and that is a lot of modern gamers, younger gamers especially, will say that they're too hard. And the one I hear the most is that Zelda 2 is just impossible. Now, I will die on this hill. Zelda 2 is my favorite 2D Zelda game. That does not mean that I don't like Link's Awakening or the Link to the Past. I love all these games, but for the technology they had available to them at the time, Zelda 2 I think is the best use of their technology in a 2D setting, and I really love it. But I want to ask you guys if you played the original games, the old NES ones, how did it feel trying to play them, especially after you played the 3D stuff? Then
So because of how I guess the first one like they really just kind of throw you out, no context.
Yep.
Here's your sword, get out of here and go
Have
have a
fun.
party. Yeah. I think that's awesome. It's very fun. Um, but I kind of agree with a lot of points I've seen online that people make with it. It is a little bit tedious being like, oh, I need to literally throw flames at random into areas to unlock where dungeons are, and it gets tedious if you don't know or if you don't have a guide and that kind of thing. Like the music is fantastic in that game. Just the
I
feel
was
of
about
it
to
is
say.
awesome. It's like, yeah, video game wise, it feels archaic, just because it is old. But God, it is so fun and interesting. But I'm with you. I prefer Zelda 2 100%. And that might be a bias because it is technically inspired by Faxanadu, a very rare NES game.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Which I loved Faxanadu growing up. So
I need to
when I,
play that one.
yeah, it's great. I saw it at Acon, the con in Dallas I was just at this month, for like $19, and I really just stood there at the booth being like, "Oh, do I buy this now or do I save my money for Dragon Con? Because I'm going to be at Dragon Con in Atlanta."
Jealous. Never been
Um,
to Dragon Con.
yeah, it was a war to get that room booked. But we're going, and I'm kind of like, well, maybe I'll find Faxanadu at that con, and I could get it there. So yeah, I have a preference for Zelda 2 just because it handles like that game, and I like the visuals a lot better. I like the combat in that one a lot better. And I do kind of like that overworld map and interacting with the enemies and how the enemies will only spawn if you go off the trail and that kind of thing. And I gotta admit, we popped it in so that we could all kind of like, oh, let's compare it back to Tears of the Kingdom one night. And immediately, as soon as we went into town and read the sign that said "Welcome to Raru," we all lost it.
It's exactly all the names are there. The names come from that
Exactly.
game. And then, do you ever play the original 2D games, Zelda 1 and 2?
So, I played one on the Wii, because you know how like Wii,
Yeah,
GameCube, pretty much most of them, especially Nintendo, since it has such a big catalog of games, to have like their retro app within the system, right? So
yeah.
I did that with the very first game on the Wii. And right now that you guys were talking about the Zelda 2, like, well, you know what? I never did. I never played it. I have the system on right now, and I just saw that I have Zelda 2. I can play it. So I was like, oh damn! Like once I'm done, I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna crack down on Zelda 2. Now I did play one. It's it's let me see. Give like I guess kind of like an analogy, I guess. So you know, like we're now we have technology. We can use this phone and all these stuff. But when you get that yo-yo, that wooden yo-yo, and when you do it, you just hit your knuckles, and because you know how to use this primitive technology, that's how I feel with this game. Like it's super basic, but damn, it's hard. Like it's like
So like
how
you
is
you
like
see somebody, I'm with you on this analogy. You see somebody who can do all these yo-yo tricks, and you're like, oh, that's so cool. I can try that. And you grab one, and this is one of the oldest devices in human history, and it hurts. It doesn't work. I like that. Like it's a good
yeah,
analogy.
it's just a piece of wood and rope, and no, there's no science to it. I know how to kill dragons and this fancy technology. I know the fancy moves. I'm gonna get this yo-yo. How hard could it be? And next thing you know, you're busting your face open with this piece of wood. That's how this the very first Nintendo Legend of Zelda feels. I was like, man, why is this so like this is harder than any of the Zelda games. This is harder than any other games that I've played. Zelda 1
Okay,
is way too difficult. I have not finished it. Of
that's
all the
exactly
Zelda
why I
games
want to
that
talk to
I've
you guys about
played,
it.
yeah, go ahead.
No, that's exactly why I want to talk to you guys about it because
Okay.
whenever I hear younger people say it's too hard, it's because I think that a lot of people are used to games nowadays that will walk you through things. In fact, the big complaint people had about Skyward Sword
Agreed.
is that it just walked you through every single step. And then with the original game, yeah, you threw out blind, but the expectation was that you weren't playing by yourself. that you're playing, but you're going to call your friends. What did you figure out? You're gonna check for the strategy guides. This is before they were marketing strategy guides to be strategy guides. In the
This was
90s, they did that.
before Fee was there to
Yeah,
give you a percentage
yes,
chance on
exactly.
how well you're gonna do on anything.
Exactly. So it was an exploration. And then when Zelda 2 came out, Zelda 2 had the same thing, but it also had NPCs for the first time that were giving you hints, and they were actual valid hints, not just like there was some that made no sense in the original Zelda game because they were badly translated. In Zelda 2, all of the hints were something. Maybe it was a silly thing, just like bad guys are dangerous. But a lot of times they tell you specific things. One of my favorite ones is "I am error." I still remember when I first found that guy. I was like, "What? This they failed programming this character." And then later on, you find out this guy says you must go see Error, and I'm like, I know where he lives. I met Error, you know. So it helped you through it. So you had a combination of uh, minor hints from NPCs, and then discussions with people that you knew. Right? That was how you played games in the '80s. Well, when Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild did this to an extent, but Tears of the Kingdom really does this. And I really love the idea that with this new game, and that's where we're jumping into the modern game stuff now, that it I think is allowing a lot of players to get some of that feeling. You're still getting NPCs that are walking through stuff, especially in the first 60, 70 hours of the game. But a lot of stuff you can't figure it out. You're going to go to your friends, although your friends now could be a TikTok video or a website, but you're still sharing that information. And that's how we played it back then. That's how the original Zelda was playable, because I think it would be entirely not playable if you tried to go in completely blind
Yeah,
without any
agreed.
context. But like Vin was saying earlier, you burn every single bush. Yeah, but your friend burned these other bushes, and he's like, I found one. There was one where the moblin gives you money. You got to go there. He wants you to keep a secret. That kind of stuff. So let's talk about the current one. Vin, what is your take on Tears of the Kingdom and to an extent Breath of the Wild?
So
My spoilers, cause I'm not done.
Okay, well, we're mainly talking about gameplay, style, looks.
Okay, okay.
okay.
I do
Well,
want to get a little
I'll
bit
tell
in.
you where I'm at, just so you can.
Where are you at?
Okay, I believe I'm like I still have a bunch of side quests. That's right, side quests.
Of course, everybody has
Uh,
side quests.
right? But I'm actually believe I'm like a step or two before meeting Ganon, because it's telling me like, oh, go defeat Ganondorf. I got all the first
See, I
layer of
already know.
temples.
I already know some stuff that I don't want to tell you because it'll spoil it. So don't look
Okay,
up spoilers
so
on that. Don't look up spoilers on that.
so so fair warning for everybody else. If I get spoiled by accident, okay, but fair warning, guys.
That's fair.
There might
We'll
be
try. We'll
spoilers
try.
and
You
fair
know what? I think
warning.
I'm glad you said that, Adine, because as
Yeah,
people listen to this, I think most people who are going to tune into a podcast where we talk about Tears of the Kingdom have played a lot of the game or maybe seen the spoilers online.
yeah.
But like myself, for example, I've been annoyed that I've seen some like end game spoilers on TikTok that I feel should not be. I mean, I've already got there, but that's beside the point. I think that
Right.
some of that stuff should be held. So, Vin,
Mhm,
back to
mhm.
you. What's your thoughts on this game and to a lesser extent, Breath of the Wild?
Here's my controversial statement actually.
Go go go.
I I never actually played much of Breath of the Wild because I didn't like it at the time.
That's fair. Wait,
Yeah.
let's backtrack. Why did you not like it?
Well, so
How
I've
dare you?
tried. Yeah, so I've tried playing it. At first, at the time of its release, I didn't care for the art style, which that's grown on me now with Tears of the Kingdom, of
Naturally.
course. But I didn't like a lot of the design choices. I didn't like that Link wasn't wearing his iconic green, which I'm sure a lot of people are like, "Ooh, cool, something new." But it didn't
I'm
feel
honestly with you on that. Like, I
yeah,
like the clothing that's happened in the game and the fact that you're encouraged to wear different stuff.
right.
But I do miss that iconic grade. It's still obviously in the game, but like
Yeah.
it isn't it isn't part of the main story at all. So
Exactly, and it feels almost out of place now to put Link in his tunic, and it's kind of like, well, that kind of sucks to an extent, right?
I know when I played Breath of the Wild, one of the things I would do is as soon as I got like most of the game done, I just said I'm going to play the game from now on dressed as classic Link. So like as I was playing it, I would
Ah.
wear the green tunic and everything else. I will say it's weird, but it works.
It's to go back to it just hit me right now, but to go back to what Vin was saying that like, uh, you know, um, to go back to what Vin was saying, how when the Breath of the Wild came out, it didn't have the iconic outfit, and at first like, oh, just like yeah, same thing. I was like, man, what a bummer. Now, now I'm like, if you wear it with now when you wear it, it's because you literally earned it because you found it
Yeah,
somewhere.
that's
You
true.
Yeah,
That's
literally
true.
earned it.
I
that's
have
true.
So
just
if,
gotten to the point in the game where I have a lot of the classic Link outfits, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm gonna wear them.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
No, no, but like, now that you since you mentioned it earlier, because when I found these items, I was like, wait, it hit me. I, I'm wearing something totally odd because since a lot of the outfits have like power ups, it gives you
Yep,
some benefits. And when it hit me, I was like, man, Link looks weird because he has like this like barbarian outfit that has his chest is exposed,
with the
but I'm
tattoos
also
and stuff.
wearing but like, cause I was in the depths, right? And now I have like, yeah, like you said, he has tattoos. I have like glow in the dark boots, and I was like, damn, Link looks odd. Poor dude has no fashion sense with me.
You know
But
what?
when I
Oh
found
no,
these
I'm the same.
items,
For the
yeah,
longest time, I was basing on what I was upgrading with the fairies and stuff.
yeah,
So I had the feathered, ancient helmet, which looks very
mm,
Aztec, which is very cool. And then I had the glowing, kind of almost like leather club outfit that he wears in the depths, and
Yep.
then the
yeah,
shirt. And for the pants, I had the bright orange male veau clothing from the desert. So I was
Gerudo.
just yeah, yeah, from the Gerudo. I was all over the place for like most of my playthrough.
Oh, that's how I'm rocking it on my primary Tears of the Kingdom playthrough, actually. I
Nice.
Mm,
happened upon the Fierce Deity mask by sheer
Same.
chance, which was awesome.
Also,
So I'm rocking that. I'm rocking the cool Vo armor top. Um and then I got I think they're stealth. I don't remember. The like skeleton pants that glow in the dark.
yeah, I thought what they do in
I need
this
to get
game apparently this I haven't got them yet myself, but apparently what they do is whenever you have bone weapons, it
Okay.
increases the damage.
Okay, yeah. So I'm
really.
looking
Ah,
like a very edgy, cool punk rocker dude right now with the white
Nice,
hair and the face tattoos and the
nice.
glowing pants. Yeah.
I'm
Hey,
I'm
I
pretty
want to say
sure.
something. I want to say something on what you said earlier about how you didn't like Breath of the Wild's style. I have a controversial topic as well. I mean, aside from saying that I love Zelda 2, which everybody hates apparently, the one that I like least in terms of well, a lot of things is actually Ocarina of Time, and it's not because it's a bad game. It is a beautiful game. Don't get me wrong, but I don't feel Nintendo was ready for 3D at the time. I don't think that like if you look at PlayStation games that came out that same year, they just blow everything Nintendo was doing out of the water. I don't think they were ready yet. That being said, Majora's Mask is the same style and is one of my favorite games because the story is so amazing. It doesn't matter what it looks like or plays like. But yeah, I don't think Ocarina. It's definitely not a game that I go back and replay a lot. So there's that.
Yeah, Majora's Mask, just the plot and the characters you run
It's
into is
beautiful.
just it's so eerie and kind of somber at points, even to the
I
point
agree.
where the kind of, for lack of better words, ugly graphics kind of work for it.
And again,
Um
I know I'm in the minority of that. A lot of people who grew up with it love it, but let me ask you a question. You talk about that dark game, and that was something that Miyamoto had said that he wanted that game to be darker. Adine, where you're at so far, everybody or not Miyamoto specifically has said that this game was meant to be the darker of the Zeldas. Do you feel that the story you've seen so far is kind of fitting that kind of dark tone, like darker than Breath of the Wild, even?
Um, with the added layer of the depths, I'm gonna say yes. It's still
Oh,
not as
visually,
much. Yeah, yeah, visually. So, and the subject matter too. Uh, not as much when you have games that you can compare it to, like Dark Souls, which is to a
that's fair.
degree. This is what this spawned all these games. Uh, right. But still, like, yeah, actually, you know what? I do because when I'm in the depths and the hands come out.
gotta
Which,
love
by the way,
Spoilers.
one thing I've
Spoilers.
not seen is that is a callback to the original game.
Yeah.
That was
Really?
yeah.
Oh,
There
wait,
was
wait.
the wall master that would come in
Yeah.
and just pull you out, and it scared the hell out of me. Is you know what's really funny about that is
Mhm,
okay, because I played the original game so much, I have in my head a way I feel about the characters, and in my
mhm.
head, the scariest of all the original game characters was the Lionels. And
Oh yeah.
the reason for that was because if you had your starter sword, it took like 20 hits to kill a Lionel, and it was like impossible to kill those things. So when I was playing Breath of the Wild, I had no idea they were in the game. When I was playing Breath of the Wild and I suddenly saw a Lionel, I was like, "Oh crap, they did it! They put him in 3D," and I ran. I just ran, and
That was no. So you saying running away? That was me in this game, okay? Because then and again in the previous game, because the previous game, I never knew about Lionels before. I was like, what the fuck is this? And then oh, okay, these guys appeared in the previous in the OG
yep, yep.
games. So okay, correct. Now I'm here and I'm going on the Elden Bridge, the big one, and I was like, what the heck is that? Like,
The three-headed. Yeah, yeah. So you got that three-headed Gleeok that pops up, and that just scares everybody. Vin,
Oh, the
what was your take?
Gleox, yeah. As far as the Lionels go, so I never got to encounter them in any of the older games. And of course, my most experienced game was Wind Waker, so there was none to fear there. But the first time I encountered a Lionel in Tears of the Kingdom, I was like, "Oh, I've heard of you before." And what I did was I climbed up because it was the red maned Lionel. He's hanging out in the swamp. I climbed up the cliffside nearby and I paraglided over and just dropped on top of him and kind of like bull rode him for a
Oh,
little bit.
you did that right, man. When I first fought, it was a long time before I figured out how to do that.
It was
Me,
my first encounter with one, and I was like, I wonder.
so yeah, you had issues with the Lionel that you jumped on it right off the bat. Adine freaked out with the Gleeok. I will say with the Gleeok, I didn't know they were in the game, and I knew them from the original game, so I was excited to see them. And again, freaked out and ran. But the first time I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna try to fight one. I'm gonna go to it. And then when I went to happened to be the King Gleeok or one of the King
Oh
Gleeoks,
no.
and I was like, why? Why did I do that? As soon as I saw, it, I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna fight everybody else instead, and ran off. I was like, no.
wait, where's the
so
Pink Leok at?
so there's a couple King Gleeoks somewhere in the land that are, I think they're mostly in the air, but there's a few out there that are like they have one of each head. You know, there's the ice, the fire,
Oh,
and lightning
yeah.
one.
I mean, not a
I've
spoiler.
only encountered the lightning
That,
one and the
But
fire
I'm
one
looking
so
forward to
far.
this. You caught me like you just blew my head because I see these Gleeoks and I was like, each time I say like, and I see how many hearts I have, I was like, nah, man. So far I've just defeated one, and it took me, and it was over the bridge, and he kept knocking me off the bridge. But and then each time he would knock me off, I had to make sure I had to like blow to the pillars because if you get sent far away enough, it resets the bar, right? The health
yeah,
bar.
Oh yeah.
that happened to me. I don't remember. Oh, I know what it was. I was fighting one of the big taluses, the stone creatures, and I was
Yeah.
like, I got it. He was almost
Mhm.
dead, knocked me off, and I was like, all right, going back in, and then his health was 100% back. I was like, what
Oh
happened?
Yeah.
no.
Why? Oh man. Hey, let me ask you a question. Have you seen the Frox yet?
Frogs. Which was that one?
It's a large frog-like creature under the ground in the depths.
I've heard about them, but I've yet
Yeah.
to encounter it. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say right now that's the new character for this game. I didn't know what it was. I just saw this giant moving thing in the background, and then suddenly it just I was like, nope, and ran away. And now I find them fairly easy to handle. But that's because I've been able to do it a lot. Pause again. Edine, how are we doing?
Yeah, it kind of like I guess the internet where like it kind of like it sounded like in the tube. So you ask the Crocs or like what did you
Frox.
say?
It's a giant thing in the depths. Frox. So
Is
we
it
pause.
is
Wait.
it
So
the
we
animal
pause.
the warm thing? The warm thing that
No,
sticks.
it looks like a giant frog. It really does.
Oh, that motherfucker.
Okay.
Oh,
Wait. Let's pause right there.
okay,
Go.
go.
Now you.
Okay, okay, that frog motherfucker. So okay, I came across a bunch of them, and again I said like I'm not ready. But at this point, I said like, okay, you know what? Let me just test them out like a little bit to see how like when I got have more items, when I have more hearts to tackle them. Let me just I know I'm gonna die, but let me just test them out. You know, so I can start formulating a strategy how to tackle him, right? So there's in the depths, there's like a huge tall tree, like pretty huge. I go all the way to the top. I don't know how that fool saw me, and I thought, and I saw him jump. Okay, cool, you know, because I you can see the how the that I forgot. the name of
Frox,
it.
yeah, the Frox.
But that thing sucks in, sucks in air, right? Sucks in air. Okay.
Yeah.
I got some distance all the way. I'm thinking it's not gonna get me from all the way down there. Believe me, I was like within the game. Let's just say I was like anywhere from 10 to 13 stories high. That's pretty high within the game,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Within the game, right?
yeah.
That motherfucker went all the way up. He jumped all, and I was like, how did he get? He knocked me down. So I was like, okay, this game is. These guys are not messing around. And I thought I was safe. It caught me off guard. That's one thing I'm liking about the depths. It's really messing with me. One, because when it's all dark, it messes with your depth perception. You
That's
don't know
true.
what's around you. It really installs a sense of fear in you, opposed when you're up in the sky or in land, because you see
You know what
everything
I
around.
like is that it's an atmospheric fear as opposed to like Dark Souls or something where it's like horror or suspense. It's
Well,
more of
now
like
I'm gonna say actually both, because that element of not seeing, which is a natural fear that we
right.
all
But
have.
what I'm saying is it's not like I think a lot of people who are not like hardcore horror fans hear the word horror and think like skeletons and blood and guts, and people who are hardcore horror fans like no, it's a lot more than that. You know.
Yeah.
Um, Something I want to ask you guys about, and this is why I wanted to talk about the older games first, is that what you guys have been talking about, where you're like exploring and find something you didn't know was there, and you figure out how do I have to deal with it. That is something that the older games did partly by necessity, but also because, like especially for Zelda 2, where they could give you more hints, they wanted you to try to figure it out. And the big complaint people had about Twilight Sword, which or Twilight Princess, although I do like those games, Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess. I think Skyward Sword gets more complaints than the other one. Is that they walk you through too much. um, my experience with this game, and this is minor spoilers, but it depends on how you play it, is that as I played it, I had a lot of characters tell me, "Oh, you go here," and then I had to figure stuff out. But then I'd get to the actual like boss area, and I'd have a helper with me who'd say, "You need to do these four things: thing one, thing two, thing three, thing four," and they'd mark it on my map, and I could go to the map thing. Well, as after I did all of the main, dungeons, I went off and started exploring some more. And I found an area that no one had given me instructions to find. And when I got to this part, it was like, oh, there's a new mission here that's like a hardcore mission, kind of like the other things. And the person told me there's four things to do and showed me where they were, but they didn't show up on my map. And I was like, oh, cool. All right, I can do this. And I was like, and then I started finding more things like that where there were more stuff where like it didn't tell me what to do, but because I'd already had that, I'm like, I can figure this out. And I felt like I was playing one of those games of the 80s again. Now I say
Mm.
depending on how you play, because then I got to like the end game and one of the characters says, okay, now you're going to have to do this. Oh, wait, you've already done that? Okay. Well, then you have to do this. Oh, you've already done that too? So it turns out if I had played the story properly, I guess I probably would have gotten instructions for those areas. But because I didn't, I got to experience it like through just sheer luck, I guess, or gumption. How about you, Vin? Any experiences like that where you just figured something out on your own and realized, oh, this is going to work?
Yeah, so like when it came to the collecting the tiers kind of like
Yeah, which
storyline
I didn't
part
do
of
for
the
a long
game.
time.
Yeah, so I of course kicked it off with the little Impa situation where you find the first Rauru geoglyph and then you go to the Forgotten Temple and then I'm like, huh, the goddess statue is knocked over and you can interact with it. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's so cool.
And then later on I was like, oh, I can ride the dragons. That's cool and interesting. And then my partner was like, see those spikes on the dragon? You could collect those. And I was like, oh, you're right. And then they were like, jump off the dragon and shoot the claw. And I was like, okay. And then the claw went flying off, and I was like, oh, I can collect that too. And so I was like, cool, I'm collecting these things. And I took a nice little ride on the ice dragon throughout its entire course of the sky and then its
Nice.
entire course of the depths.
I've
And
only
then
ridden one dragon so far. I need to go back and ride the other ones.
yeah, they're fun. I still haven't ridden the fire. Well, I kind of jumped on the fire one and farmed a little bit of it, grabbed the claw. I didn't do the Goron
Full,
stuff yet, so I was dying of
yeah.
being on fire the whole time, but I got what I needed off it. And well, after that little joyride on the ice dragon, it popped up, I believe in like the Linaru mountain area, and right next to where that chasm is, where comes out of is the goddess shrine where you can drop a claw in the spring. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I talked to it and it gave me that prompt, and I'm like, oh, I have one of those. So I dropped in the claw, and then it was like, great, if you do this with two more, you'll restore this goddess statue that's toppled over. And I was like, oh, I remember that. I was there. So I spent a lot of time riding dragons and farming materials and then running around the map because I had no idea where these shrines were. So I kind of just had to explore on my own, and it was a lot of fun. And yeah, while I didn't play a lot of the first Zelda game, I did play a lot of like quintet top-down pixel RPG things that are very reminiscent of Link to the Past, like Illusion of Gaia, Terranigma, the likes of
Yeah,
that.
I love those.
So that's that also gave me a sense of, yeah, I'm exploring without clear instructions. I'm just listening to vague information and rocking and rolling as I see fit.
You know what's funny? You mentioned farming. I've had a couple people tell me they didn't like this game or Breath of the Wild for that matter because they felt like they had to do too much farming and or grinding, even though they use that term. And the thing is, I like doing that in those kind of games. You mentioned like Illusion of Gaia and stuff. The way I play the games, like when I play Zelda 2, and I play Zelda 2 every couple of years again, is by the time I actually get to the end of the game, I've maxed out everything because I've just gone around and done so many other little things. So I enjoy doing that in this game. Is that been too much for you, Eddie? What do you think of that? Do you think there's too much grinding, too much farming in this?
It's the opposite for me. Like, because this is what I wanted back in hence the term open world. This is what I
Yeah.
wanted back in Ocarina of Time
Yes.
and
Which
Majora's
was
Mask
which
and
was
every other game.
very open world for the time, but not
Yes.
true open world.
No, they're true. Those games again, they were, but I just remember. I don't know. You guys tell me this? Uh, if you had this when you were a kid playing these older games, right? Of Legend of Zelda, you're playing the map and everything, and you will see some mountains out from the distance, right? And you're like, oh, I wanna go there. That mountain looks very interesting. But you would reach the edge of it, right? You would reach the edge of it, and it's like, and once you reach the edge of it, it made me think like, it's the it's the limitations. This is the box that I'm within the computer simulation, right? It kind of took me out of it. This one, which is the same still again, but just a way bigger map. But the fact that I can do all of that, hey, there's a plant right there. I can do something with it. What? That whole the limitless combination of things you can do is the thing that I always wanted to do when I was a kid playing these other games.
You know
So,
what you're
on my
talking about.
side, no complaints.
Exactly. What you're talking about got expanded from Breath of the Wild. And I want to give you a very specific personal example for me. In Breath of the Wild, I was doing a lot of exploration before I did the main story. I will say in this game, the main story had me so interested, I had to keep doing it before I got to the exploring, which is unusual for me. I
Yeah.
usually explore a game before I will go to the main story. But anyway, so I was doing exploring, and I already seen the Yiga. Sorry, I'd seen the Sheikah, who they have this eye symbol and this little thing going up, and you're like, oh, it's very cool. I like it. I love this idea. And then I found this area that had the Yiga symbol inverted. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what? And I started, there were more of it and more of it. They had these frogs with these little, sheets over their
Yeah.
faces. And I was like, are these like devil worshippers in Hyrule? Like they've got little inverted Sheikah symbols. And I'm like looking around. And then I find their temple and I couldn't get in, but I climbed over it. And I found this hole, this endless hole to nothing. And I was like, this is the only hole to nothing in this entire game. What is this? And I was so like amazed by it. And it turns out that I hadn't activated a quest yet. And because I hadn't activated a quest, it was empty. But if I activated later on, I activated the quest and I explored it, it was fine. It was fun. But like exploring it, not knowing what it was so much more fun. In this game, even if you don't activate a quest, you can still do the stuff. And that's really cool for me because that's like when I said I did things before the quest got active, it was a fun exploration idea that I could just do something. And now, admittedly, it would be a different experience if I had the quest active, but still, I was like, it opened my eyes. I was able to do things that I just I've always wanted to be able to do in Zelda. All the things I
But
tell people I love about Zelda 2 is the exploration. And of course, you have very little that you can see because it's 2D and everything. Here it
hmm
has that, but you're in it.
yeah, I'm gonna say just aside from the lore of the game, just the fact that again you can do all these not even side quests, but just the fact like you could ride these rivers, so much exploration. It really gives the game what's it called it's so much replay value
Yeah,
that,
definitely.
for example, like Ocarina of Time, one of my favorite games, right? It's what got me into this franchise. But once you played it once, if you played it again, it's just kind of just two, like maybe, but it's just kind of like it's kind of like when you watch a movie, you saw it, cool, and you saw it again, it's like there's nothing else you can do but just redo what you already did. This is not the case. The game it basically goes off on how you explore life or you explore things. Because to me, when I first started both this one and Breath of the Wild, my first angle was I need to first, even like the game is telling me to what to do first, right? It's giving me like a hint or suggestion how to start off the how to say the story.
Hmm.
My thing was I'm gonna hit open explore all the maps first. I'm gonna explore the maps. I'm gonna get all like hit all the towers. I want the map first. Once I got that, then I'm gonna just go ham on the story. That was my approach.
Then, have you had any setbacks in your gameplay?
Oh my god, do I get to tell my 4-hour Epona mountain story?
Oh my god, I saw the
Oh,
highlights of that on TikTok.
Yeah, a lot of people were confused and were like, you could just summon your horse. Well, I can't because the whole thing started with one day I was like, I don't know what amiibos do and are because I was so much of a Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo person for so long. My partner was like, yeah, they give you bonuses in the game. And I'm like, no way. So I scanned all of the ones that they had, and then I had the two Toon Link ones because, of course, that's my boy. Yeah, yeah, that one too. Yeah. Um, we have that one. We have two from Breath of the Wild. We have the two. That one we don't have, but I love
Oh,
that one.
when you said
Yeah.
the Toon Link, I thought I forgot. I guess it'd be Pixel Link.
Yeah,
You got one based on
we've
the
got
based on
Wind
the original.
Waker, and I guess technically the other one is from Smash. Um, so I was
ah,
scanning them. I had started the whole Zora domain stuff, and it was literally right before you talked to Sidon to get his ability to like help and kickstart that whole situation with
Mhm.
that mini first boss. It was right before that part. Um, I was scanning the amiibos up on top of that mountain at Mifa's court, and with my luck, I spawned an Epona, and I was like, "Yay, have Epona!" And then I read that you can't. Well, the horse will disappear allegedly after some time if you don't get her like
Registered.
registered. And I was on top of a mountain, and there was no safe way to
ah,
get her down. And I was like trying for a while, and it I couldn't figure it out. I kept killing her and reloading my file, and I was like, God, how am I gonna? And people online were like, freeze her and throw her off, and that still didn't work. Fall damage,
What?
it didn't matter. Yeah, none of that worked because apparently you could freeze a horse with an ice arrow and push it off the cliff somehow. That did not work for me at all. And I was like, I felt bad because I couldn't get her down, and I was like, man, I really can't save my horse. This sucks. And I found like a little shelter from like some enemies that I had killed, like their little fort, still there and empty. So I got off Epona, left her there, said my goodbyes, dropped her an apple, and I didn't know she could eat the apple. So she ate the apple, and she had the sparkly little pink cloud of happiness. And I was like, this horse is really gonna make me cry. I went off. I did my side on quest, which took like I was pretty much playing in intervals on like work nights kind of thing when
Mhm.
I had the time. A couple days later, I come back. Um, Well, I think during that time period, I scanned them again and I got another Epona. And I was like,
You're like, I could do it.
I'm like, another Epona, still in the mountains. Great. Awesome. Love it. What are the odds? And the first Epona disappeared, I presume. And I was like, well, that sucks, whatever. And I left the other one in the same area. Did the Zora's Domain, fun stuff, whatever. Came back days later. And Epona was still there at the stable. Well, not stable, but
At the
little
little
fort.
the shelter.
And I was like, wow,
Okay.
she's still here. And I was like, I've got to find a way to get this horse down. She waited for me. So, queue 4.5 hours starting at midnight to 4:30 a.m. of me trying to find and like glitch her through perfect pixel like breakthroughs down this mountain where it's still sloped to where the horse didn't want to walk down it at all. Like no matter what I did, she would just struggle and refuse. But kind of like bullied her into it, and then I got stuck on a little platform where it was just tiny space, complete like vertical drop. Like there's no way I could get her down safely, and I got off and I was like, I don't know what to do. And I like kind of like got down and I looked and tried to scope out the area to see like, is there a way to get her down from here? And then I turned around and she walked off the edge. And I was like, Epona, no, don't do it. Not like this, man. And to my
Not
surprise,
like
she kind of
this.
like, she kind of like sat awkwardly and literally slid down the mountain like on her own. And I was like, no way. Is this real? And I was like, I need to document this. And I like clipped every moment I could. And like we got to the bottom of the mountain and I was like, cool, now we're at a ravine and I don't know what to do. Can you swim? No, you won't get in the water. Cool, I don't know what to do. Got off the horse again to kind of like scope out the area once more, like where am I gonna find a way to get her to safety? She clipped through the ledge again and ended up in the water, and to my surprise she could swim.
Yeah, when you're not on her, she'll swim just fine.
Yeah. So she swam and she went down 3 massive waterfalls and got attacked by Octoroks. But by God, she made it and she was fine and she got up and we got off like the out of the water. We passed all of that and I like I checked my map for the nearest stable and we just ran all night to the stable evading enemies and I got her registered and I was like, yes, finally, Epona is home. And it was almost 5 a.m. my time and I was like, it's time to go to bed. I woke up the next day, I scanned my amiibos and I got a third Epona. And this one didn't disappear, so I was able to register my second Epona, which I named Not Epona.
Oh, so you have 2 Eponas registered?
I sure do.
Yeah, I had a similar situation where I had a Epona for my save, and then I scanned the amiibo to see what happened, and I got a second Epona, and on the map it said Epona, and I looked over here and it said Epona. I was like, what? But I didn't actually go around to getting them together, but anyway,
yeah,
I should have. But the worst one I've seen is somebody went through a big battle and there was a cutscene at the end of it, and when he came out of the cutscene, that he didn't see his horse, and he saw the horse on the map. So he walked toward and it was on one of the giant bridges. Mm-hmm. Walked toward where the symbol was. As soon as he got there, as soon as the horse was in view, it suddenly got active and just fell.
Oh no!
So he was just able to see Epona fall. All right, so I want to come back to the game for a minute, and here's the thing: we've all been talking about how much we've loved this game and how much it's really become involving for one reason or another: the story, the graphics, the gameplay. Here's my big question, and this is something I said at the very beginning of this whole podcast. How has it affected your life? I, for example, I got it right at the end of the school year, so it took over my life when I got home. But then once the school year was done, I have been playing too much Zelda every day. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
I'm okay. So I'm supposed to be at work at 3 a.m. That means I need to be waking up at 1:50. I've gone there late to work because of this game. I was like, I wake up and it's like, God damn! I was like, shit. I was like, well,
oh my God.
And so like, I've like my responsibilities to the wayside. I've been focused on. I've been arriving to meeting with friends and stuff like that. They're like, oh, I need to be there. Go set up or something. Edit this podcast. I then put it on to the side because I've been playing that game.
It takes
Yeah.
over everything. Vin?
It's
Yeah.
funny, actually. So, this game came out on May 12th. On May 13th, my partner is actually still a really big My Hero Academia fan, and their favorite character is Monoma from Class B. His birthday was May 13th, so we were like, haha, let's throw a fun little charcuterie birthday party for this character, invite some friends over. I look at the calendar, I check the pre-order that I ordered the game for them because I didn't like Breath of the Wild. I didn't think I was gonna play it. I didn't anticipate playing it at all. And then I realized that it came out the day before that party, and I was like, hey, so Zelda comes out that weekend. And they were like, oh crap, I guess we're playing Zelda at this party, and hopefully all of our friends are cool with that. Of course, they all got it opening day as well.
Of course.
And so it went from being Monoma's birthday party celebration to Tears of the Kingdom release charcuterie party instead. Yeah, and so I started off by watching them play it, and by the time I think they had done maybe 2 or 3 sage quests, I was like, can I maybe put that on my Switch and maybe give this a go? Like, I kind of want to try it too, not gonna lie. So that party got turned over to a Zelda party, and it's been nonstop every single day since then. We've been playing. We went over to another friend who isn't even playing the game, her house in Austin, for her birthday party, and we all took turns playing our Zelda games on her TV. Like, have you guys done this yet in the game? Let me show you what I have so far. Like, fun, happy, fun times, good stuff. It's gotten so bad to where I'll be driving and I'll see like a big plank of wood and a rock on the road and be like, wow, I could fuse those and do things. Yeah, it's awesome.
You know, it's funny. I'm on TikTok, and I've been seeing those lobster videos a lot on TikTok. And there was one video where they put the camera in the lobster cage down below, or crab cage in this situation. And because it's at the bottom of the ocean, it's all this like off green. And then it had a cage, and the bait they had in the middle was kind of filtered gray, green because of it. So it looked like a Zonai made cage and a frozen meat. And I was like, oh, I'm watching a Tears of the Kingdom video. And the crabs walked in. I was like, wait, this isn't Tears of the Kingdom. So I was watching it thinking it was Tears of the Kingdom.
That's
But
awesome.
by the way, can I just say, Zelda and charcuterie, you have the coolest friends.
Oh yeah, it was great.
I'm jealous of that experience.
I baked bread for it too. It was awesome.
So that's what I wanted to say. You know, this game has kind of taken over our lives to an extent. I think that happens to games every couple of years where there's some game that kind of just takes over everything. What I really appreciate is how universal this has been. Like you said, even you who didn't play Breath of the Wild, and even people who are just like watching clips online, they're getting into it and kind of following along. And admittedly, a lot of it, one thing we haven't talked about, one thing I don't do, I haven't really done the goofy creations or the let's see how many ways we can torture a Korok. I haven't done that. But like, you know, everybody finds their own thing they want to do in this game.
Oh, for sure. Actually, another way it impacted me. So Acon was the very first weekend of June.
Mm-hmm.
So it had been like 2 weeks after the game had come out, which honestly, all of our downtime in the hotel room was spent playing Zelda. Getting all of our friends into the hotel room, all playing Zelda together. But before that con, literally 2 days before we left for Dallas, in that 2-day time span, I actually just with scrap fabric threw together a Korok cosplay because
I saw that. Like, I saw that on Instagram. I liked it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like, I'm in it. I need to do something. I have a Toon Link cosplay, but I was just so into the poor torture of the Koroks that I was like, I need to do this. And we had.
Can I just say that I could really see you pull off the classic Link haircut?
Oh, I would. Yeah,
I could see you do that. With
I would
giant,
cosplay him.
The giant,
I'd be down to actually cosplay at every version of Link at some point. That's kind of a goal of mine. We had a funny exchange in the elevator, so I'm there in my Korok cosplay, and this dude just kind of looks over in like medieval attire, and he's like, have you found any of her friends? And I was like, nope, they shipped them all off on rockets.
Hey, speaking of goals and stuff, I'm going to ask you both real quick. Is there anything that you would want from this game, or maybe even the next Zelda one. Zelda Nintendo has already said that the Zelda franchise going forward is, at least in the 3D ones, are definitely going to have elements of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. They're going to probably be this kind of open world. Definitely, like they didn't
How
specify
can you
which
go back?
elements.
How can you
Well,
go back?
so that's a good question. I use Metroid as an example. Metroid Prime series showed amazingly how the series could work in 3D, but then they still made subsequent 2D Metroid games. I could see them doing that with Zelda.
No, for
But
sure. It's gonna for sure. I think there will be some other games that are gonna be traditional, but I feel like anything like, well, I guess they're all main stories, right? But anything like on the main system, I feel like, yeah, it's gonna be like this
well,
or some
but like,
variation of
but what
this.
I'm asking is, are there elements or things that you would want either brought back from
Ah,
older games, or something that as you're playing, you're like, I wish I could do this.
oh no, you just reminded. Thank you for reminding me. Um, I don't know if it's gonna be for asking too much, both out of the developers and also the machine itself. Can it handle? Would be all this that we have right now: sky, land, depths. Can we get oceans?
I Yes, underwater.
That would be
This is
pretty cool.
Breath of the Wild was one of the first games in a while where you had no underwater gameplay, and they did not, and that was one of the things people expected to come back. And obviously, we love what they gave us so much. Nobody's really talked about it that much, but yeah, there's no underwater or really water exploration.
I actually, and it's something that my partner agrees with too. We both kind of miss the old dungeon formats where you get your cool, nifty little tool that helps you through it. And I understand like the sages are kind of replacing that, where you get your sage and their ability helps you through their respective temples and whatnot. But they're they're kind of repetitive,
Yeah, they
where
do
it's
that.
like
That
it's
Thankfully, there's only a limited number of them that are repetitive, but they are.
right. Exactly. It's well, there's like 4 locks you got to do and unlock it with my ability, and I kind of do miss
Yeah.
the intricacies of like going through the dungeons and then being like, I need to explore everything and like collect all of the treasure chests, and even if it's a freaking like red rupee, like I need it.
Yeah, I know that
um,
feeling.
and like I liked that feel, and the lack of that kind of makes it feel not as much like a Zelda game, even though it's a fantastic game and it's got the characters and the lore. The gameplay is
I,
still fun in a different way.
I feel like they did bring that back to an extent with the
I feel
Sages,
like with this
but
one, yeah.
where they failed in bringing back that nostalgia is this. Since they're using the same map, right? There were certain areas that when you played Breath of the Wild, and I know you didn't play Breath of the Wild, Vin, but when you played Breath of the Wild, there's certain areas that you're like, oh, this is clearly a temple. I wish I could explore it. So when this
Mhm.
game came out and there was explorable stuff, I was surprised to find that those really distinct areas that look like temples aren't. So,
Right.
like for example, Akala Tower is this big one in the east that is, by the way, has those hands on top of it. Warning right now. But you're like, oh, I can't wait to explore that thing. And there is a way to get inside of it, which took me forever to find. But you're only finding one room. That's all you get out of it. And then
Mhm.
another one that I wanted to explore is there's a promenade part just north of the Sheikah town, and I was like, oh, this is a whole city. I can't wait to explore this city in the new game. And no, all you get is one shrine. That's it.
Yeah,
And then the big one is the ancient forgotten temple, and that one you
yeah,
do get to go inside, but it's still only a handful of rooms, not
exactly.
but so you do get new temples. There are stuff, especially in the desert. There's a lot of temples you can like explore, but of the ones we saw previously, we couldn't explore them, which
Right.
that made me sad.
Let me interrupt. Don't give me too much, but is I already been to the Forgotten Temple. Couldn't figure out what to do in there.
There's a
Is
story. It's a story thing.
something is done there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
once you get a specific storyline, they will tell you to go inside there. That's when you can open it up and go further. But
Okay,
but
got it, got it,
but what I'm
good.
saying right now is there's not much you can do in there. It is extremely useful for the ongoing story. But like I wanted to just explore, like even in the first game, the one place that you could really explore was Hyrule Castle, and there was so much to explore. And
Mhm.
and in this
True.
game, I don't feel like there are as many. even though there's more caves, which I love,
Yeah,
you don't have the temples, which is kind of the standard for Zelda.
Yeah, no, I agree
exactly.
with that. I agree with that with the main castle. Now I'm wondering if they like a lot of these spots that before were like we explored a lot before. I'm wondering if they were nerfed to give like at least this is how it makes sense to me. I'm wondering if these things were nerfed so that they could have more space, memory space, or mechanics
I
to
mean,
develop the sky, to develop the cave system, and
yeah,
all those things.
possibly, but it's like to me, it's like this. There's some elements of Breath of the Wild, which if you play both games, it feels like they plan to have a follow up. You're like, oh, like that giant hole I told you about from the Yiga area in the first game is very clearly a way to the depths, but it's the only one like it in the first game. But
Mm.
there's a lot of stuff like that where it seems like it was on purpose. But there's other things that were just kind of like flavor in the background. That they're like, nah, we'll make them another one that's better. And I'm like, I wanted to go, or the one in the jungle too. That big one. I wanted there to be more exploration, and there is a little bit. There's a little story there that's cool. But like, I wanted to go through like an Indiana Jones type, temple and stuff. Speaking of exploration, Eddie, you mentioned you wanted the sea exploration. You know what I
Mhm.
wanted? Loft wings. I wanted
Yeah.
to ride a horse on the ground and a loft wing in the sky. And admittedly, we're going to be mostly using the Zonai devices anyway, but I
Mhm.
really wanted it. And the other thing I wanted was this: cities. I wanted people in the sky, and I wanted people underground.
Yep.
Didn't have to be a lot. Even if they gave me like one city in the depths, I would have been happy,
Hmm.
But I wanted to see like cities that I could see like people have settled there, or people are still settling there, or even a robot city or something. I don't know. But like, oh, that reminds me. One thing I've wanted has been in almost every Zelda game except for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Good guy moblins.
Yeah.
Because
True.
ever since the original game, there have been traitors to Ganon's cause that will either minorly help you, or majorly help you, or just say, leave me alone. And I would love to see, and I think part of the reason they don't want to do that is because they don't want you to be killing people that you learn are sentient. But these guys are clearly sentient. Whenever you're not attacking them, they're having a party around the fire. They're talking to each other. They sleep next to each other.
Yeah.
They
They
cook their
sleep in their
food.
comfy little caves.
They build weapons. If you go to the horriblins in the caves, they've got all the once you've killed them, you can see where their beds are. It's
Yeah.
sad,
It's
you
very
know.
tragic.
And I'm like, I want to interact with them. I don't want to work with all of them. Don't get me wrong. I like killing most of the bad guys, but I want there
So
to
are
be
you
like,
a Kilton enthusiast then?
yes, yes. I want there to be a little town of like hidden. In fact, here's what I want them to just be called blins, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, they were called moblins, and then now moblins are the giant ones, and bokoblins are the little ones. But like blin was like the base word, right? So maybe blins would be when they're not possessed by Ganon.
Yeah.
They're not evil, they're not possessed. They're just like, look, man, I just want to live here, And I'd love to interact with those guys. Yeah,
I wonder if Kilton is a callback to some of those
he is a
polite.
callback to it,
Yeah.
but I miss even like Zelda 2 had a little blob that would help you out,
Awesome.
minorly, but it's there.
Yeah.
And I miss that. And then what else? Let's see. The big thing I wanted from Breath of the Wild was a blacksmith system, and we don't have that, but instead we got the fuse, which is really cool. But yeah, the thing that you had said, Vin, you had said you wanted to have the return to kind of the classic temple format, and I agree with you, but I feel like they did a good kind of medium point in this game where you get and they did this in Breath of the Wild to a lesser extent, where you get an ability with your companion character, and then you get to do stuff with it. But what I do wish they brought back is exploration items that can be used in combat, but are primarily intended to be used for exploration. Claw shots. One of the
Yeah.
silly one is Twilight Princess had that little
Oh,
spinning circle.
the Beyblade.
Yep, basically.
Which
And
my partner is planning to make one of those for their Twilight Princess Link cosplay, mind you.
I love it. I don't want that brought back in the same way because it was only useful on bars.
Of course, yeah.
But like you can do that now with the shield and the cart attached to it, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's technically still there. I wish there were more cart tracks throughout the world. When I saw them on the main island, I was like, cool. There's going to be more tracks, and there really wasn't. You really only see them there in an Eldin.
Right.
But like, I like more of that exploration. Claw shots is that. I mean, I realize it's asking a lot, especially in a game where everybody makes hover bikes now.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Now we've
but
got Zonai devices to test our
yeah,
creativity and engineering skills.
Speaking of creativity, how do we feel about I guess how do we feel about all the shenanigans that people are doing with all the items? I don't know if you've seen the
yeah.
TikTok,
We touched base on
but
it earlier. We didn't actually talk about it. Vin, what do you think about the torture of the Koroks and the, let's say, anatomically correct Zonai creations?
Well, I don't do them personally.
Same.
I love watching videos on all of them. I could never torture
Yep.
the Koroks myself because I love them too much. It's funny because I got a question asked anonymously on Instagram that was like, "How much torture have you done to the Koroks?" And I'm like, I don't torture them. I laugh at their suffering on TikTok, but that's about it. And I had answered in addition to that with, I wish I could build them a theme park, like have the
Oh,
energy to build them a theme park, but I feel bad keeping them apart from their friend for too long, so I just don't. um
you
and
know,
as soon as I said that, the very next day I got a TikTok video. Somebody had built rides for their Koroks, different flat rides,
oh,
and it
I
was
think I saw some
awesome.
where people were taking Koroks on a tour of Hyrule, and they put
Yeah,
them all together.
that exactly that one. Somebody built like a spinning, like whirling teacup sort of
I
ride
did see that one. Yeah.
with the tires. Yeah, very awesome stuff, and I wish I could do that for them.
I've only built stuff that have been like practical for the moment, but I
Me
really
too.
appreciate people that build like the Batman tumbler, or
Oh
they
yeah.
or they build. There's a series of people trying to make Black Hawk helicopters,
Yep.
and I'm like, you know
The
what? I
the
respect
Vietnam
that.
era
Yeah,
music playing as they bomb
I
the
respect
bobbins.
that. I'm not going to do that, but I respect it.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
you know what?
impressive.
Actually, now that you mentioned, because I've actually hopefully in the next game, if this continues, this whole thing of like it kind of like this Minecraft aspect of that's one thing about it, like these both of this game and the previous game, like Breath of the Wild, that it has aspects which I feel like they inspired on like Minecraft, the creativity where you can craft things.
which I
So I'm
never would
one
have expected in a Zelda game, and I can't believe how well it fits.
Exactly.
right.
It's so much fun. I love playing Wile E. Coyote Simulator. It's fantastic.
But by the way, as far as the technology goes, I remember when the cycle came out in the previous game, and everybody's like, "This isn't anything to do with it." And I was like, every single Zelda game is a post-apocalyptic game, every single one, because every Zelda game takes place after there was a high technology society. Even like the oldest one in the series, which is Skyward Sword, there
Yep.
was an older society that had robots and stuff, and you're
Exactly.
like,
Well, you help
"What
those
the hell?"
robots in that one section,
Yeah.
don't you? With their little,
Exactly.
yeah.
So the one thing I want to ask you guys about talking about the next game in the series, and that's kind of the big one. And by the way, before I say this, Edine, there's a little bit of spoilers in this part, so I want to ask you about it. Have you defeated some of the temples with the sages?
So I've gotten all
What?
four of my
What? I know you
sages.
do. I'm
Yeah.
asking. Well, check Edine. Edine, have you done that
Okay.
yet?
That's with the sages.
So yes or no? You got like one or two of them at least.
No. Like, what do you mean by with the sages? Because I have all four sages. You
Okay,
know where you
that's what I
get
wanted to ask you
them.
about. That's what I asked about. Okay,
Okay, I have
and
the
then
four
and
rings.
then and then
All
have you
five
done?
rings.
Okay, have you done the Tears of the Dragon storyline?
I've done the dragon storyline. I'm missing my fifth sage, but
Yeah, spoilers. Edine, have you done any of the Tears storyline?
What's where you
That's
see the
the
memories, where you see the
Yes, the
jugular?
memories. Okay, you have. Okay,
Okay,
Mhm.
all of
so
them,
so
yeah.
all right. So the reason I want to bring that up is this. All right, there were two things that I've always wanted from previous Zelda games, and I'm not alone in this from the way people talk about it. Number one is I wanted a Zelda game where you could have a party with you, and like the old RPGs, like Illusion of Amana,
Uh-huh.
Gaia, stuff like that we were talking about earlier. Um, and um, and the closest we got to that was I think Hyrule Warriors, where you actually had the group with you. That's kind of cool. But that was a spin-off game by another company. This game kind of split the difference a little bit. You do have a team with you, and it's kind of fun. You
No, I
can't really,
love it.
yeah, they're not really part of this ongoing story as you talk to people, but it still feels like you have a party. But then the other aspect of it that everybody's asked for since I would say at least going back as far as Wind Waker. Why can't we play as Zelda? And there are some games where you can play as Zelda. There's obviously the first game you could play as Zelda was the CDI game, but that's no one talks about that.
What about the other one?
But well, yeah. There's the other. I don't have that one. That's the one that's now the other Zelda
the
CDI.
cursed one.
I want that one. It is too expensive for my blood.
Oh, yeah.
I want it so bad. Anyway, but back to the main line series. There's a few times where Zelda is kind of playable or whatever, but she's never actually in the game. And then in the Hyrule Warriors game, not only can you play as Zelda, but you can also play as Linkle, the gender swapped Link, I guess. But in this game, Zelda clearly has an entire adventure that we aren't seeing. You get bits of it, and the bits that you see, to me at least, feel like I'm watching the beginning, middle, and end of an entire Zelda game.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Agreed, definitely.
And I'm like, I don't think Nintendo would do it, but if they came out next time and said the entire next game was Zelda's story, my God, I'd be so happy.
Oh my God, exactly. Yeah, I would be right there with you. Yeah.
Okay, right? What you just said, right? Cool. What would be the name of that game?
The Legend of Link. Zelda.
The Legend of Link.
Legend of Link.
To find the hero.
Exactly. I was saying that a while back, actually. I was like, what if, like, we had a more puzzle-focused, as in, like, puzzle, like, really more in-depth than any other, like, kind
like
of
the old
Zelda
school Zelda
game.
games, really, like the pre-3D ones.
Exactly, because she's wisdom, like
Oh,
having a game that solely focuses on that and less barbaric whatever Link is doing with his life nowadays.
Well, it's like this. Think about the balanced combat. Link does mostly combat, but has puzzles.
Yeah,
hers could be the other way around.
Exactly.
I love that. I like that idea.
I remember talking about that a year or so ago. I was like, well, why can't we have this? Because that would be pretty sick.
When the first trailer came out and you saw her fall and Link go another direction, one of the fan theories, the hopes is that he's going to get whatever new powers you get in the game, which we find out comes with the hand, and that she was going to have the old powers from the first game. And that would actually be pretty cool to, like, you could do the whole game entirely differently based on what abilities you have, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah, Zelda's story in this game, like, completely, like, captivated me. As soon as I started getting the tears, I was like, I gotta keep finding these tears. I gotta keep knowing what's going on with Zelda. And
again,
I did not care about Zelda in Breath of the Wild.
Same. When I played Breath of the Wild, I skipped most of the story until way later. I did so much exploration. Here, I couldn't stop the story.
Exactly, yeah. And I like Zelda as a character, like all sorts of different iterations of her. She's fantastic because she's so, like, all of them, they're so different in every, like, iteration of them. I did not like Zelda in Breath of the Wild at all, but this last one, like this one, I'm like, oh my God, like, obviously it's the same storyline Zelda from Breath of the Wild, but obviously she's had her mature, her growth.
Her story in the first game was largely, I don't feel
she
like
was
I'm
16 turning 17. She was a kid. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, time frame wise, Tears of the Kingdom seems to be about 5 years later.
Right.
So Zelda and Link are both in their early 20s now, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. Yeah, I'm just, like, totally captivated with everything that she's gone through, everything that she decided to do, her interactions with Rauru and Sonia, who I'm ultimately in love with both of them. They're fantastic additions.
We haven't even talked about all the thirst traps in this game, but that's something else. But yeah,
true.
So Nintendo just announced the first Princess Peach focused game in almost 20 years.
Right, yeah.
So Edine, Vin, do you think we're going to get ever a Zelda game?
I hope so. Zelda's such a popular franchise, and her popularity as a character herself is only growing with these two recent games. Like, there's so much Zelda love nowadays where I feel like not as many people were as, like, captivated by Zelda as a character in the past. They loved her, but ever since like this new era of Zelda as a character, yeah, I feel like she would be a strong contender for having her own game.
To go along with his with Vince saying, because when you know what the wrong how I say the school of thought was, which was wrong, that boys like video games, not
Yeah.
girls, right?
And
So
princesses need saved. That was like the
and so the game industry has evolved where it's like, oh, okay, girls like what boys like. They like destruction. They like explosions like anybody else. They like pee pee boo boos, guns. Who doesn't like it, right? But now I feel like since slowly the point of view, how the way how guys, males think now, the male psyche thinks now. I feel like now we're more ready to see that, right?
in terms of pop culture perceptions. Yeah, I
The
agree.
pop culture, yes.
You know
Now,
what? You
like, I feel like not us, but I feel like companies are starting to see that. Like,
know, definitely.
we as a people, we've already gone past that point. But I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah. I think a
now,
lot of companies, the companies evolve at different times, and I think Nintendo's been a little bit slower than most for that. Like, for
yeah,
example, when Super Mario Odyssey came out, I was super excited about it. I'm not a Mario fan, generally speaking,
yeah,
but I was like, oh, I think they're gonna have a story in this one, and I bet you it's gonna actually, go past the start. No, it was still Princess get kidnapped. Bowser wants to marry her. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting to me about Zelda is that you said here that it's evolving. Like, what boys can like, what girls can like, boys like. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom has, in terms of the individual characters and specifically Link, have
hmm
really gone beyond gender stereotypes.
Oh
yes,
yeah,
If you
absolutely.
go to Link's costumes, admittedly there was that one storyline in Breath of the Wild where he has to cross dress, and that's problematic for reasons. But like in this game, they like screw it, lean into it. In fact, one thing that I think is great is that there was a massive fan base in the first game who wanted Link and Sidon, the prince of the fish people, to hook up, and they lean into it in this game.
Oh,
Like
they
there is
absolutely
so
do.
much dialogue.
Even Yona supports Link.
Yes,
Like
she does.
she's like, "Oh honey, please go off with your twink boyfriend. I
Yeah,
support
like I
you."
know what gets you excited, then come back and we'll make the air.
Sidon
Um,
has two hands. He can hold Link and Yona's hand.
Exactly. And, and
Yeah.
and when I first saw the statue of the two of them, I was like, "Oh my lord, I love this! I
that
love
actually
it!
was funny.
Oh, it's
It
fantastic.
was
I'm a
perfect."
fan.
But you like look like I feel like when it comes to how I am my way of thinking, I'm still a boomer. I'm still like oh, I want my this and I want my steak well done and I want my barbecue. Very old school, right? Right? Traditional conservative in that train of thought, right? When it comes to video games, right? When I saw the fan fiction of Link with Ganon and all that stuff, and at first I had a moment like, wait, that doesn't bother me. I'm like,
No, it was adorable.
it
I
doesn't
love the one
bother me.
where there's
I like
several
it.
that
I
have
like
both
it. They've
Link
been
and
catching up.
Zelda trying really hard not to be turned on by Ganon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
I
are
like it. I've
fun.
seen a lot of those, and I was like, you know what?
And then there's a
Ganon,
storyline. I don't know if either of you have done the mayor storyline yet, but eventually
I'm getting
Link.
there.
I'm going to give you a slight spoiler here. Link gets only a headpiece. I wish there was a whole body. Maybe there will be in DLC, where he's got bright purple blue lipstick and a pink wig and a beautiful like
I
flowery headdress.
I have seen photos of it.
And at first I thought, well, maybe it's a still costume, like like the fierce deity sometimes is presented that way, and some of the others.
Right.
But no, I put it on and then interacted with the fairies, and you get close-ups of him going, oh, but with the lipstick and everything. And I was like, yeah, they really leaned into it. They don't make a joke out of it. Nobody makes fun of it,
Yeah,
and it's
His
not even
like
like
frost armor in this game,
yes,
the form
yes,
fitted with the open back.
all the dragon armors. I haven't got the frost armor yet, but
Yeah.
I have the thunder armor, and it is also that. But I've seen
Incredible.
the frost armor pictures. But the thing is that like there are things where you're like, oh, well, maybe when they brought it to the US, blah, blah, blah. But no, even in the way the characters are reacting, it's obvious that there was never any intention of making fun of it. Whereas in the first game, there were a couple things that were a little problematic. They had the gay coded construction worker or construction company owner rather in the first game was very overly done and mincing. In this game, he only does that once, and it's just like part of his personality. You just go with it. It's not like
Yeah, it felt
uh,
natural.
yes. Whereas in
Like
the first game, it was like clearly a joke.
exactly.
And,
He
and,
didn't feel like a caricature. He just felt like
it's
that's how he is. And I'm like,
that being
cool.
said, there's one thing in this game that I wish they fixed from the first game, And if you haven't unlocked it yet, I'm going to tell you right now that it's there, but whatever. So if you played the first game, there is a quest that after I finished it, I realized I just helped an adult man meet a child girlfriend.
Oh no.
Why did I do that, Nintendo? And you might think, oh, it's a translation thing. And there's a lot of YouTube videos online where they're like, no, it's a translation issue. But even the videos that say it's a translation issue, when they show you as many of the translations they can, like verbatim,
Yeah.
it's still there.
Yikes.
So you have the Zora people who are they on average, like to get to their 20s is 100 years, right? So you have a character who's like I think 60 or something. So she's like an 11 or 12-year-old for them, and so she says in the game that I'm an adult as far as Hylians are concerned. Why does my mom not treat me that way? And then she meets a boyfriend, and I'm like, what? And then I thought in this game maybe they can at least address that. In fact, I didn't see them for the longest time, and then I finally found them in the storyline, and they don't do a lot of that. But every time you're interacting with the boyfriend alone, he's always like, oh, do you think she'll like me if I do this? Oh, and he actually does this with his body and stuff. Like, oh,
geez.
do you think? And when you talk to her, she doesn't do anything with her body. She's just like, oh, he's here. He gets lost a lot. That's why I take care of him. And I'm like, cool, that's fine. Child takes care of incompetent adult. I'm good with that. But his facial reactions and body reactions are very clear. And he even says it in the dialogue. Do you think she'll like me when I do this? And I'm like,
right.
Lord.
The subtext to that dialogue is
and when you talk to her mom's like, oh, those two are inseparable, and I'm like, oh Lord.
Oh geez. Well,
so Nintendo, so many steps forward, but that one part, what the hell, Nintendo?
Maybe baby steps, right? Hopefully, baby. Hopefully, Shigeru Miyamoto listens to my Primo's podcast. And
Yes,
like,
he does. Everybody listens to my Primo's podcast. And on that note, I think we should start to wrap up. So, so final thoughts, guys. Edine, final thoughts on this game. Wrap it all up in like one little nutshell. What would you say about this game?
I love it. I'm just gonna say this. I love it. So far, I'm having a great time. And just to give, I guess, my least favorite part of it, again, like always, the water temple. The water temple seemed a little bit too easy for me.
Which is funny because in previous games, water temples are always the hardest.
Yeah, or at least I always hear something negative about a water temple.
Yeah,
With the exception of the Ocarina of Time, I like that one. Oddly enough, that's the one that started it all. But yeah,
a lot of people get angry at that one too. Yeah. Vin, thoughts?
Yeah, this game pretty much it's not only been a great deal of fun to play alongside friends, my partner, even my family are starting to get into Zelda games because of it. Just having a well-rounded good time with that aspect, but it's kickstarted a lot of creativity in my art and cosplay, and I'm thankful for having a piece of media that has so much of an impact. Not only on myself and my friends and everything, but it's kickstarted a lot of inspiration, and it's fantastic to have that driving force behind me once again. Yeah.
I feel like I have almost the opposite take as you in the sense in that I love the game as much as that we've all said, but it's just taken away all of my.
Oh my goodness!
But that
just because I'm having a lot of creativity doesn't mean all my time is also being taken up by playing it.
That being said, that creativity, we can find it online. Where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm Buried Aliens on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, and then I also have Buried Aliens art on Instagram, which is solely my illustration stuff. Buried Aliens proper is cosplay on Insta, but Twitter, it's everything, including spammy ramblings. So yeah.
I have pretty much given up on Twitter. Like I technically still have an account there, but I don't use it. I always had trouble with Twitter before, but now I don't really have to. So, but yeah, you can find me on most of them with Kevin Garcia _com. But primarily, though, I would say look me up on TikTok, although I haven't posted in a bit because of this game. And Edine, can we find you on social media? Or do you hide?
I don't want to be found.
I had a feeling.
That we keep it to ourselves.
But you can find My Primo's podcast on all the social media apps just by looking at My Primo's podcast. You can also find us now at myprimospodcast.com, and you can find My Primo's podcast on all of the regular podcast apps, which is, I understand, how you are currently hearing my voice. So that's very cool. But check us out on myprimospodcast.com, our new website. And thank you very much, my primos. Thank you all. Goodbye.